Despite having more competition than ever with Euro Cup 3's ever-growing grid, GB3 is in a prime position to be one of the world's best feeder series below Formula 3 this season. Hello and welcome, fellow motorsports fans. This will be a bit of a weird preview episode considering only about half of the grid has been announced at the time of recording, but with most of the key seeds taken, I reckon it is still very much worth talking about, giving you a bit of an idea of where I see all of these drivers before the season. And while we do know that the key players historically are Hitech and Rodin, followed by JHRD and Elite Motorsport, be aware that much like in F3, we'll have a new chassis here this season, so things might look very different, even if the driver lineups very much reflect those previous power dynamics. We'll start with the less interesting and less full teams first, with the partial programs for Freddie, Slater and Rashid Dhaheri driving for CDR and Hill Speed respectively. While both will focus on Fracker, they should be able to make waves in GB3 if the car allows, Slater particularly being the most promising driver below F3, no doubt in my mind about that. This comes with a bit of a caveat that both teams, but particularly Hill Speed, have been quite poor in recent years, so it might be more of a track learning experience for these two drivers. Another solo entry, at least thus far, is 20-year-old Bulgarian Stefan Bostandiev at Hitech. Now, this is a really interesting case considering he has been driving GT4s and most recently Lamborghini Super Trofeo with no single-seater experience on his CV to date. As a keen spectator of both GT4 Europe and Germany, as well as the European Super Trofeo, I can say that the guy is quite a bit better than his poor placings in those series suggest, but there's obviously still no real reason to believe that this will be a successful campaign. I just wanted to point out that he is one of those cases where the Wikipedia page doesn't really tell the full story about his driving ability, at least in my humble opinion. Axel Motorsport is new to the series and is fielding a lineup of Jack Sherwood and Patrick Huizenroder, joined by Deagen on a partial schedule. Sherwood is a bit of a question mark for me, with a good run in British F4 last year, but maybe not exactly a great one considering his experience, unlike Deagen Fairclough, who we'll talk about in a minute. Patrick Huizenroder has impressed a fair bit over the winter, so I do hope he can carry that form over to Europe. Particularly his ability to find an unlikely overtake is something to watch out for, in my opinion. Deagen is an incredibly frustrating driver to watch. Seems like a lovely guy and quite obviously has great raw speed, but a big lack of consistency, and I am starting to believe he may just struggle a bit under pressure. Sure, I may be reading way too much into that at the moment, but so far this was my only explanation for his atrocious 2024. Since he is only on a partial schedule anyway, I think Huizenroder will take this particular inter-team battle, hopefully somewhat comfortably. The cooperation between Argenti and Prema is also a new team on the grid, with Mercedes Junior Juanpu Choi, oh god, that name is still an issue for me, joined by Lucas Fluscher and Reza Subarutan. Quite a young trio, with all of them only having a single year in single-seaters so far. Combined with the speed they've shown, this team might be onto something. I don't know why Choi is a Mercedes Junior, money being my best bet for that of course, but he is by no means a bad driver in his own right and did put in a solid rookie championship in British F4. I do think both his teammates have the ability to outshine him though, particularly Reza Subarutan. Kid has been rapid ever since he stepped into Junior Janata and kept the form in his maiden F4 campaign last year, as well as a decent, although not outstanding, Formula Regional debut over the winter. Lucas Fluscher I'm less certain about. He absolutely hit the ground running in Spanish F4 last year, but sort of cooled off as the season went on, thus I am backing Subarutan to win this particular inter-team battle. Now to what should be the stronger teams historically. Elite Motorsport with the uneven duo of William McIntyre and Bianca Bustamante. McIntyre, by all accounts, would have been a solid pick for F3 this season and has been great throughout his short-ish single-seater career. And he also happens to be comfortably the highest rating returning driver, therefore he'd probably be a favourite in any lineup. But having Bustamante next to him as an opponent should make it all too easy. As much as I love seeing more of the F1 Academy graduates pick up quicker cars, Bastianini really isn't one of the drivers I'm particularly looking forward to. Make no mistake, I very much hope she proves me wrong, but she's been more of a liability than a contender in anything I've seen her drive so far. JHRD used to compete on a similar level, but this year's lineup might make it weird. Kai Darianani may be a low-key fan favorite and he is visibly improving year on year, but I don't think he's actually quite ready for this level of competition just yet, at least not with any sort of title aspiration. Noah Lyall has been a bit mediocre all of his career so far, if you ask me. A safe bet for the midfield in pretty much anything, but equally nobody I'd expect to fight for podiums on the regular, no matter the car really. He should have the upper hand against Darianani, but unfortunately the whole lineup isn't super duper inspiring. I hope the third seat can make up for that. Now to the big boys. Rodin with British F4 runner-up Alex Ninovic, Gianmarco Pradell and F1 Academy ace Abbie Pulling. Aussie duo Ninovic and Pradell are both capable young drivers, particularly Ninovic has impressed quite considerably last year, but the real story here of course has to be Pulling and what she can do on this level. As one of the most accomplished female drivers currently still in the feeder series world, her performance will massively impact the excitement for the F1 Academy project going forward. And to be honest, given a big experience advantage, I think she has a shot to put in her fair share of good drives. Will she beat both of her teammates? Pretty unlikely, but not entirely out of the question, and that alone is a huge step if you ask me. And last but not least, we've got Hitech with an absolute killer all-star lineup of Spanish F4 runner-up Keanu Al Azhari, British F4 dominator Deagen Fairclough, who broke basically all the records you can break last season, and last but not least, Nikita Johnson, youngest man in the squad and contender for brightest American prospect on the ladder. Predicting the battle is insanely difficult for various reasons. Johnson has the most experience in the cars with a partial program last year, but not much track time in Europe altogether. Fairclough should be the most at home in all of these British tracks, and Al Azhari has probably experienced the strongest opponents so far over his career, although this is debatable. I cannot make a prediction here with any certainty, but I'll back Johnson as that would definitely be the most satisfying storyline in my opinion. Either way, I'd expect all three of these drivers to be key contenders if the car at all allows, hopefully making for a great year-long battle. Who is your favourite, both in Hitech and overall? And what other drivers will you be rooting for? Please do share all of that down in the comments. And as always, I'm obliged to tell you, if you happen to be new on the channel, I do a weekly review of all possible single-seater action called Race Week Review, so if you want another way to keep up with all the racing, you may just want to consider subscribing. And otherwise, I thank you very much for watching and I do hope to catch you in the next video.